Hello and welcome to the Wildcast podcast. This is Michael Lev, senior writer and columnist with the Arizona Daily Star. Very special guest today. I am hoping that this will become an annual tradition. It's the second time that we've had Kenzie Fowler on to preview the Arizona softball season, the Big 12 softball season, take a look at the sport and what's going on there. Kenzie, of course, a phenomenal pitcher for the University of Arizona back in the day, now an analyst for ESPN. She will be working almost every Arizona softball game on ESPN Plus. She also will do games for the mothership. She will do games in the NCAA tournament. She'll do AUSL. She'll do Little League. She is there. She has forgotten more about softball than I will ever know. Kenzie, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, this is the start for softball season for me. So I'm doing really great. Like you just said, I'll be starting this week with Arizona's home opener, and then I go till August calling softball games. So for me, this is like my in season. It's the best time of the year. So I'm happy to talk all the softball things.
So Arizona traditionally hosts tournaments, right? This time of year, kind of a weather-based schedule, like a lot of home games early in the season because the weather's nice here versus other parts of the country. And it was supposed to be a multi-team event, but it's kind of turned into a soft launch against Southern Utah and then jumping into the deep end against Oklahoma. What do you make of starting the season that way for the Wildcats?
Yeah, something had to have happened because to set yourself up to schedule Oklahoma 3 straight times in a weekend takes a ton of guts. And maybe, Coach Lowe and the staff are like, let's just go big. Like, let's go big or go home. Of course, they are at home. I think it's great that as a player, I don't ever remember opening the season at home. We were always on the road in Phoenix. There was always this really big tournament called the Kajikawa Classic, and that tournament has shrunken a lot. It used to be a really expansive tournament, and it's a much condensed tournament for Arizona State now. So that was plus 10 years ago. So now Arizona has been opening up the season at home because of the weather, and it's a great venue, and teams are always clamoring to come play at Hillenbrand Stadium. I cannot remember opening a weekend or opening the season like this for Arizona softball. This is a marquee matchup. There are going to be so many eyeballs on this Oklahoma and Arizona 3-game set, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's been so many people already talking about it, just kind of, the chatter in my community. So everyone is very excited. You're going to see softball, of course, all over ESPN Plus, and it's on all your devices. But when you get this type of a matchup, I mean, this is a postseason heavy hitter on heavy hitter matchup in week 1. Like, I'm so excited to be on the call. I'm just geeking out as a fan. So it's going to be phenomenal.
So this has been a strategy that Chip Hale has used pretty effectively over on the baseball side of things at U of A, is scheduling these really hard opponents early in the season during the non-conference, going to these kind of national tournaments, facing SEC teams. And I think he likes that you can find out a lot about your team when you face a really high quality opponent. What do you think we might find out about the Wildcats this weekend?
Well, I also think when you're signing up to play a tough team like this early in the season, I mean, what better time to play them, right? Because if you can get one win against a resume like Oklahoma, that they will have no doubt come May. This team right now is ranked number 3. You could have arguments for them being ranked number 1, but in front of them right now are the defending national champions. And so it's a little bit of a roadblock there. But they have all the makings to be the best team and win the national championship on paper. The one weakness that this team does have, and I say that with air quotes, is their pitching. Mm-hmm. They have a new-ish look to their pitching staff. Everyone knows who Sam Landry is. She was an All-American. She pitched almost every inning for Oklahoma last season. They just rode her arm. She was phenomenal. She graduates. She's in the AUSL now. Oklahoma reloads with an All-American in Sydney Berzon, who's a senior transfer from LSU, so keeping it in the SEC. And then also had a transfer from Ole Miss, who Arizona faced in the regionals last year in Miley Wachenio, who was a stellar freshman. So you reload with two really solid arms, maybe the best two available arms that were in the portal from the SEC, go to Oklahoma. And I'm saying that that's their weak spot because it's new. The rest of the team is the exact same team that we saw in the Final Four, if you will, the semifinals in the Women's College World Series. And to me, it's the best offense in the country. This offense, phenomenal. You're not going to face a tougher lineup than what Arizona will face this weekend. And so, what is Arizona going to look for? It's their pitching. It is their pitching. You're facing these bats, and the highlight for Arizona is replacing Devin Netz, a Big 12 Player of the Year. She did it in the circle. She was their go-to girl, and then also in the box with her bat. I'm not shy to say that Arizona's offense will be very solid. I have no worries about their offense. I've seen them in scrimmages. You just look who returns on paper. You look who Coach Lowe added in the transfer portal. I think this offense will be a top offense when it's all said and done in May. Pitching is new. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of on equal ground right there for Oklahoma and Arizona. Both, opening weekend, trying to figure out who's the ace, has all the work that we've been putting in the fall, early now in January, going into the first week of season. Is it going to play out like we hope? Who knows? That's the beauty of it. Like, we don't know who's going to be getting the bulk of the innings, but what an opportunity for the pitchers for Arizona.
Yeah, when you were talking about like the teams, the Oklahoma's quote unquote weakness being pitching, I was thinking to myself, you could say the same thing about Arizona, right? It's minimally a big question mark going into the season. They had, I think, 8 pitchers on the roster last year. They have 4 this year. The only returnee from that group is Sarah Wright, who barely played at all last season. 3 newcomers. One of them is Jalen Adams, transfer from Iowa,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Janae Berry, transfer from Indiana.
Yep.
And Riley Holder, who is a freshman from Texas, who's going to be very involved in things. You yourself know what it is like to be a freshman and have a significant role on a college, softball contending team. Do you remember? Do you know how many innings you pitched as a true freshman for Arizona?
No, not off the top of my head, but it was a lot.
What's your guess? What's your guess?
A lot. I don't know if you have it.
I have it. Yeah, I have it.
Okay, go for it.
284 and a third.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I don't think they're going to ask Riley Holder to pitch 284 innings this year. But from what you know about her and some of the transfers, what are your sort of early impressions of what those girls might bring to the circle?
Well, I would have given anything to have, the pitching staff around me. If I was Riley, thinking about to where I was as a freshman back in 2010, would have given anything. We were just a little bit short-staffed. There were some roster movement things that happened right before I came in, and so we had a great utility pitcher, Sarah Akamine, who is slated to be our third baseman. Coach says, we're going to need you to pitch a little. And so she said, anything for the team. And that's kind of how that went. So Riley is probably the headliner, I think, for this pitching staff, which is kind of ironic because Jalen Adams is, I think she was second team all Big Ten. She has the experience. She's a senior. But everyone is really high on, there's nothing like a freshman recruit and coming in, you're a top 10 arm, you're from Texas, right? There's like a little something to that. And so I think everyone's very excited to see the youth that she brings to the circle. And I think there's always just also a little bit of magic that happens to freshmen because there's just that unknown, you're unscouted, but people are still excited to see you. So I just love that dynamic of it. But Jalen will be asked to carry a heavy load as well because you cannot coach experience. You transfer that experience in. She's the senior on the staff. You have a lot of youth underneath you. And so you also set the tone in the bullpen. And so that's huge for culture. Someone that knows how to work and get things done and then has big game experience as well. So I think those two are the arms that I look to for Arizona to replace Devin Netz. And then we can't forget her, Miranda Stoddard, what she did for Arizona last season as well.
Yeah, so when you look at the composition of that staff, as you mentioned, only one senior Janae Berry's a sophomore. Sarah Wright is a sophomore, and Riley Holder a true freshman. So there's a lot of youth, some unknowns. As you said, that amount of pitchers, it might seem like a lot for you since, maybe back in the day, 10 years ago or so, there weren't as many pitchers on a staff. The approach was a little bit different. I feel like it's kind of mirrored baseball a little bit in that way, and that there's a little bit more mixing and matching and not relying so much on one person. Is 4 enough to get you through a season these days?
4 is a little small for what it requires at the D1 level in the P4, era. It's a little small. So I think it is huge that they have a senior in that mix. I would be a little bit more worried if all 4 were underclassmen, that you're not reaching panic mode, but you're just like, okay, how is this going to play out? Well, having a senior in the mix, someone who has carried a load and is very comfortable, kind of been there, done that, kind of lets you take a breath a little bit more. But 4 is a little slim. Looking at the Oklahoma roster, they have 6, and one is an All-American transfer that returns, and they have, I think, 2 other returners that have big time, SEC World Series experience, and then they bring in 2 freshmen as well. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because 8 last year, I think we all watched that for Arizona. I don't think Coach Lowe planned to have 8 pitchers at the same time. I think that's too many. You don't have enough people to be in the mix. Pitchers will get stagnant. Maybe people are unhappy. And then 4, maybe a little bit thin, but it's so hard to just find that sweet spot of what your team needs, whether that's 4, 6, or 8. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out for Coach Lowe.
Right. There is, of course, an amazing pitcher in the Big 12, probably the best pitcher in the country, the best player in the country, Nigel Kennedy, who, very famously transferred from Stanford to Texas Tech, became the first, $1 million softball player in college. They were the national runners-up last year, right? Losing to Texas in the finals. They are again considered to be one of the best teams in the country. It's Texas, Texas Tech, it's Oklahoma, the consensus top 3 in whatever order you want to put them.
Yep.
But they are not just Nigel Kennedy, right?
Not this
There's
year.
A lot more to that team.
Oh, yeah. You talk about a team that hit the portal. I think they said, look at it, hey, football, we see what you're doing. Watch what we're doing, because we're just going to double down and add twice as many transfers as you guys are. They hit that portal so hard. The second the World Series was over, the commits were just rolling in. And so, yeah, they are no doubt the favorite in the Big 12, should be the unanimous number 1 in terms of the conference. I'm assuming that Oklahoma State can't vote for themselves. That's why
right.
They have to vote. So then I'm sure Coach Glasgow's vote goes to Oklahoma State for that one spot. But yeah, no doubt, everyone is going to be chasing Nigel Kennedy and chasing Texas Tech. They bring in an all Big Ten catcher. They bring in a all Big Ten pitcher, a lefty from UCLA, Caitlin Terry, who has All-American potential, from the state of Arizona, actually from Phoenix. So not only do you have someone with experience and caliber to back up the best player in the country, but she's a lefty, she throws 70, she has a great off speed, she's got a little sass to her. So if you like them like that, they're pretty set up very well for a solid ride, not only in the conference, but to the national championship.
Yeah, Nigel Kennedy, of course, had a phenomenal first season at Texas Tech. And I recall she had a hamstring injury for much of the year and wasn't able to practice as much as she would have liked, and still obviously so talented and so determined. She was still very effective. When you look at the preseason All Big 12 team, there are 18 players on there, 7 of them from Texas Tech, which is just crazy. When you think about the fact there are 11 teams that play softball in the Big 12, to have that many shows you that it's not just a one-woman show anymore down there. And they are a serious threat to win the national championship. As you said, the almost unanimous favorite in the Big 12. You can't vote for your own team, so that's why they didn't get all 11 votes. Besides Texas Tech, besides Arizona, you mentioned Oklahoma State. Arizona State, I think, was got the same exact number of votes as Arizona in the preseason poll. Are those kind of the big 4, would you say, in the league?
No doubt. And the reason is Oklahoma State has an All American pitcher in Ruby Malin, and Arizona State has an All American pitcher in Kenzie Brown. And, no bias here, but it is a pitching game. And you have a horse in the circle. Either one of those young ladies can pitch to any team. They are that good and that talented. So that's the reason why you see those two teams at the top of the standings, because of those two players. Their teams are very similar. Oklahoma State and Arizona State are. It's kind of interesting how they're built. Arizona, they're ranked high because of their offense, and I think of their team as a whole. Don't really have a standout in the circle like Oklahoma State and ASU do. So it's just teams doing it in different ways. Of course, the respect. I think Arizona has the respect factor always, and they return. Obviously, they lose a lot, but they return a good bulk of their lineup. You think about who Arizona is returning in their lineup offensively. Sydney Stewart, an All-American a season ago. Reagan Shockey, someone that I think should be on All-American watch. It's kind of that season for her to really turn it on and take that spot, whether that's in the leadoff spot or the number 2 hole. She's just that good of a player. And then defensively, Taylor Beal, when you return a conference defensive player of the year at shortstop, that's always a good sign. So there's a lot of really good pieces for Arizona, which is why they were ranked in that top 4 in the Big 12 standings. But everyone else in the Big 12 has some really good pieces. Just don't know if they have all the collective to get that initial start of the season top ranking. They have maybe one good hitter here, one good defensive player there, but they're not returning an All-American in the circle. They don't have a team that was a top 5 offense a season ago like Arizona was. But I think the Big 12, I think it'll surprise some people. I think there's some teams that I look for like BYU, UCF, Baylor, Iowa State to maybe make a little bit of a jump from a season ago. There's some good things in the conference for sure.
So I want to dig deeper into Arizona's roster here. I want to first ask, though, about a couple players that they lost to the transfer portal. 2 very high-profile outfielders, star players, Dakota Kennedy and Kaya Altmaier, decided to leave for their senior years, which I guess we shouldn't really be surprised by anything that ever happens anymore when it comes to the transfer portal. Yep. Kids these days, right?
Yep.
But when you learned that was happening, what was your reaction?
Dakota was, obviously that was kind of a big moment, I guess, in the softball community, because that's a big name. And where is she going to go? Where is she going to land? All-American, Gold Glove, had been with Arizona all 3 years. Lands at Arkansas. Okay. And then Kaya, to me, was kind of the surprise. A phenomenal hitter, great defensive player, but just didn't have maybe the same accolades that Dakota had. So you're talking about putting a resume out in the portal. To me, like that takes a lot of betting on yourself, really, because you don't know if there's going to be someone waiting for you in the portal. She ends up at the defending national champion, Texas. We'll see where she fits into their lineup, because that's a lineup that returns almost everyone, if not everyone, and gain a couple of people that maybe were injured a season ago who were starters and will be slated to be starters this season in that lineup. So definitely as an analyst, I'll be kind of keeping my eye, and as an Arizona analyst, we'll be watching them from afar and seeing how they fit into their respective rosters. But definitely stings for Arizona, because you plan to lose Devin Netz, right? You plan to lose Miranda Stoddard. You don't plan to have people transfer. I guess you should now in this era. Like, that should just be part of your team building, just anticipating someone moving somewhere. I would hate to be a coach, because that would be just, so tough to do every single season. But you have to credit Coach Lowe, what she is able to do in the portal very quickly. People to replace those types of players. Grace Jenkins is a name that I think Arizona fans will learn very quickly. She should be slated in the 4 spot, the 4 hole. And if you're going to bat in the 4 hole at a school like Arizona, that means that you can swing it. And she was a player of the year at her conference at UConn, the Big East player of the year. Can catch. I think she's going to be slated to play right field, because you return an All-American catcher. And then Serenity Trice is another really fun transfer offensively that Coach Lowe has slated in to replace Kaya Altmaier and Dakota Kennedy, and she'll be at the top of the lineup. So you lose 2 bats that would have been at the top of the lineup. What do you do in this era as a coach? You replace those 2 bats with transfers that will be at the top of the lineup. So the top 4 for Arizona, I'm anticipating being Reagan Shockey, Serenity Trice. You could probably interchange those 2. They are both short gamers with so much speed. Arizona fans love to see those players run at the top of the lineup, so they'll have some fun with those 2. And then the big bats of Sydney Stewart and Grace Jenkins.
So Grace Jenkins, as you mentioned, was the Big East Player of the Year a year ago at UConn. She set all kinds of school records. And she is moving from catcher to right field. The left fielder is in all likelihood going to be Emma Kavanaugh, who is also a catcher by trade, who's moving out to the outfield. What do you make of the fact that you've got 2 former catchers in those corner spots, with, of course, the very speedy and superb defender Reagan Shockey in center field in between them?
Well, I'd be telling Reagan, you go get everything. Like, you just go take it all. I'm sure there will be some shifting in softball. You can have players re-enter once. And so I'm sure we'll see some of those times where maybe those catchers who are playing the corner outfield spots maybe get pinch ran for. That pinch runner stays in defensively for an inning or 2. Could even be a situational thing where that player stays in if they need to sacrifice bunt or slap. Because there is a lot of versatility on this lineup. But I'm sure that you'll see Coach Lowe kind of piece those corner outfielders together. And to me, that's going to be tough, right? You're going from a Gold Glover in left field to maybe someone that may be playing for the first time in their collegiate career. So you just have to lean on your returners, and that's Reagan Shockey. You have to lean on her in center field to say, lead the way, and lead the girls to the left and to the right of you to be in the same spots that you need them to be, but just go get it all. Go catch the ball. And she can. She's that good of a defensive player.
Sure. You mentioned the re-entry rules. I covered the Big 12 softball tournament from afar last year, and also the regional that took place at Hillenbrand. It was really my first in-depth exposure to covering softball games, and I just decided that I would treat the re-entry rules like time travel in movies or how to calculate unearned runs, and just whatever it is. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to go with it. Like, you guys know what you're doing. I don't.
It gets a little complicated when it's the pitcher, because anything else, it's pretty easy. So say you're the starter, I enter for you, you're still alive. Once you come back and replace me, I'm dead. I'm out.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So the girl who's kind of sandwiched in the middle, once she comes out, she's out. But whoever's the starter is, if you're a starter, you're highlighted, you have that little extra, flexibility, you can go back in. It gets tricky when it's a starting pitcher and they come out and then somebody goes in for them and then somebody goes in for them, and then it can keep going. That starter is still alive. She can come in at the very end. So that gets a little complicated when there's a lot of people sandwiched in the middle. But yeah, it is different than baseball, but it's fun. There's a lot of flexibility and it gets more people in the game.
Yeah, and they had, Devin Netz and Miranda Stoddard weren't just pitchers last year. They were also first baseman or maybe DH, which adds another layer of complication. They don't have that this year. The pitchers are just pitchers and the hitters are just hitters. And as you mentioned, they have a lot of good hitters, another potentially really good lineup. I'm doing a story on Reagan Shockey. Talked to her extensively a few days ago, talked to her dad today. Very interesting, her sort of tale, a little sneak preview. She's the youngest of 5 siblings, and she's the only girl. So she grew up with 4 older brothers. She also was a right-handed hitter until age 12, when she decided she wanted to become a slapper, and kind of the rest is history, because she's obviously phenomenal and really good at it. She was a preseason all Big 12 pick along with Sydney Stewart. The catcher transferred from Washington last year, hit 20 or 21 home runs.
21, yeah.
Had 7 home runs, I think, maybe 7 or 9 in her first 2 seasons combined at Washington. Do you think she always had that power in her? Do you think it was coming to the desert? Was it all of the above? Where did that come from?
Well, it's funny because when she played here, I remember her just going off. Like, I think she hit 3 home runs in a weekend when she was on Washington. And that was like half of her home runs hit in one season. So maybe it was just one of those things where she liked playing in Tucson. I hate to say it, but the air's a little thinner here. So the ball does travel. I can, vouch for the pitchers. Sometimes you'll be pitching and you think you jam a girl and you're like, yeah, I got her to pop up. And you look up to left field and you're like, no, that's still in the air and that's still going. So sometimes that happens at Hillenbrand, but she just absolutely blossomed this season. It was really fun to watch her. Um, can't teach someone that's 6'1" and can run and is strong. She was an elite basketball player growing up. Like, she's just an absolute athlete. And so watching her and Amber Freeman, the hitting coach for Arizona, was really fun. I love their dynamic. There's a lot of pride there. You get a player, you get some talent, and then you kind of put that talent to the field and you see what she did last year. There's a lot of pride, I think, in what Sydney Stewart did as a transfer. And that is how you make moves in the portal, right? You have the success, you have the resume, you say, look what we did here, X, Y, and Z. This is what we can do for you if you make the move. And could be why Arizona was able to get players like Grace Jenkins and Serenity Trice because of what Sydney Stewart did a season ago.
Yeah, when you don't have quite as much money available, you have to be able to offer something,
Yep.
right? And Arizona's got weather, it's got great facilities, it's got great coaching, it's got prestige, right? It's got evidence of player development. Fans.
You will
That's
play
another
in
one.
front
Yeah.
of you will play in front of thousands more fans than you will play anywhere in the Big Ten, even in anywhere in the Big 12 because of the weather. And that is something that's so huge in our sport, right? You only have 4 years to play here, D1. AUSL or Pro League is up and coming, but before that, it was kind of like so much eyes on just your experience, at the D1 level. And so when you get to play in front of fans and you get to play at home and you get to play in the facility that Arizona does, that's a lot of really huge gold stars when you're in the portal talking to players.
Yeah. So we mentioned Grace Jenkins, probably the highest profile of the transfers. Serenity Trice looks like your starter at second base. She's a transfer from Iowa State. You've got Jalen Adams, who will be one of their top two pitchers, coming over from Iowa. And there are also some really good holdovers, too, like Jenna Sniffen, who was really good defensively at third base last year, kind of tailed off a little bit offensively, maybe not that surprising for a freshman. But when you look around the infield, Taylor Beal, of course, is kind of the anchor there. Serenity, her new double play partner. What do you think of the corner spots?
Yeah, I think first base could be a little bit of an open spot. That was the spot that Devin Netz and Miranda Stoddard held down, and anytime one of them was pitching, the other was at first base, and so they graduate. That spot is now open. I think they have some young freshman hitters that could be in the mix there at first base. Sina and Kez, two fun names. Kez is from Hawaii and can swing it. Both of them can hit. And so we'll see who's in the mix there. I'm sure that Coach Lowe is going to try and find a way to get both of their bats in the offense. That's where things get tough. And then Jenna Sniffen returns and Taylor Beal returns on the left side of the infield. For me, those two are as good as it gets defensively. I don't think you'll find a left side of the infield that's better. I'll put them up with the Oklahoma left side of the infield, the Texas left side of the infield. That's how good they are defensively. It's just, can they make the jump offensively, and can they contribute and hit 300? 300 or higher would be phenomenal. Those are two bats. They're probably in the lower half of the lineup. They're not going to be top five hitting around Sydney Stewart or Grace Jenkins, but you want their gloves because if they're able to secure outs and keep innings short and help the pitchers who will be new, which is so huge for young pitchers who don't have a lot of experience. It's just, can they take that jump offensively? And that is what the fall is all about, right? You have a season where maybe you kind of reflect as a player, okay, what were my strengths? What were my weaknesses? Let's get to work on those weaknesses. And then we all just get to sit and watch and see what kind of product turns out a year after your freshman season or junior season or whatever that is.
Third base is a super important defensive position in softball, right?
Yeah.
Because of because of the slappers, basically, and the bunting, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a fast game. You have to have someone that is fearless. I would not want to play third base. Absolutely not. Never. You're having to deal with players that are incredibly strong righties who can pull it at you, or you're facing a hitter like Reagan Shockey. You have to defend the bunt. You have to defend a chop slap, so you don't know if you need to play back. A power slap, you have to have your hands like this. You don't like you watch baseball players that sometimes their hands are like this because they're back at the bag. Softball players, your hands have to be here because of how close you are to home plate. You have to be ready to defend yourself. And Jenna Sniffen has one of the quickest transfers in the nation. And so that's why she was slated at third base as a freshman a season ago. I mean, that was a big spot for Coach Lowe and for a freshman, and she thrived defensively.
Yes, so the players over at first base that you were referencing earlier, I'm going to probably botch the last name. You probably know how to say it better than I do. Sina Talataina?
I think so.
Is that right? Okay.
I'm going to figure it out this weekend. We'll get it right. Yeah.
She is a freshman from San Diego, and Kez Lucas is a freshman from Hawaii, who I believe is coming off of an ACL, I want to say, but apparently is healthy and who's going to be in that first base mix. That could be a spot where there's some mixing and matching, some platooning, etc., as they sort of figure out their team during the preseason. There are some, quote unquote, softer spots in the schedule where you could probably throw some freshmen out there and see what they've got and get them some experience that they need. Looking big picture wise here, Kenzie, I had someone commented on social media about Arizona when I think I posted just what their rankings were this year. They're all kind of between that 17 to 21 range in all of the rankings. And the word that the poster used was stagnant to describe the state of the program. And I didn't really know what to make of that. I get what he's saying because, they haven't been back to the College World Series in a couple of years. And there may be some programs nationally that have kind of leapfrogged them a little bit because maybe they have more resources. What do you make of just kind of where the program is at right now and what it could potentially be in this new era of the portal, player movement, NIL, all that stuff?
Yeah, I don't envy being a coach in this era at all. I don't know if it was any easier for Coach Candrea, back in his years when everyone was chasing him. So it's just, another type of problem, I guess. But I mean, as a softball, person that's in the community, and it's hard for me to separate because I am an alum. I'm so close to the program. I'll be calling a lot of games. But if I kind of step back, the program still has a ton of respect. Anytime that anyone talks about Arizona softball, it's the tradition, loving that Coach Lowe is at the helm. This is her 5th season. It feels like it's her program. What they were able to do with retooling the facility in 2019. And I mean, they have been at the big stage in terms of the World Series. They've been to super regionals. Obviously, last year was a different mark. It was the first time in the Coach Lowe era where they had that top 16 seed and were able to host at home. Obviously, it doesn't work out. They run into an incredibly hot Ole Miss team, and that was the team that I followed. I followed them to super regionals and watched them upset Arkansas, who was the number 4 overall seed, and Ole Miss is that Cinderella team. So just kind of a bad matchup, one of those things where you just run into a team that's hot. It happens all the time in sports. So there have been a lot of like benchmarks, quote unquote, that Coach Lowe has hit quietly that maybe people kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit because it just feels so big when you lose at home. I mean, she was in the World Series in 2022, and if you would have asked me if that team would have gone to the World Series, I would have said no, but that team had the magic. That team was the Cinderella, if you will. They were just on a run. And then, the team that they had last year with Big 12 Player of the Year, like, let's talk about that. Devin Netz, having that on the resume, bringing back a Conference Player of the Year. We hadn't had one in a long time. So that's a huge resume stat builder for the program. And it's why the program has the respect and continues to stay relevant. It is very tough to compete with a lot of these teams and the SEC, of course, and Texas Tech and what they're doing in NIL. And Arizona is continuing to stay relevant. And I think the fan support is one of the things that separates the program from other programs. And it's why it will always be one of the most relevant softball programs, is because the community of Tucson turns out for softball and they love the sport of softball. And that catches a lot of people's eyes. It looks good on TV. We're going to be broadcasting every single game on ESPN Plus, and people will see that and people will notice that, and it'll keep Arizona, I think, a relevant program as they've ever been.
Sure. When you were ranked in that 17 to 21 range, that does not, like, you're not really projected to go to the College World Series, at least in sort of the initial look at things. What's the X factor for them to maybe go from 17 to top 8 to be an Oklahoma City caliber club this year? Is it pitching?
Yeah, I mean, I could go the obvious answer there. It's going to be pitching. It's anytime you look at who ends up at the World Series, you're going to have a horse that is determined to get her team there. And so we'll see for Arizona what that looks like in the circle. But I also think it could be what some of these new spots look like. There could be some sleepers in this lineup that we haven't talked about that just absolutely do maybe what Sydney Stewart did a season ago, who was kind of an unknown. Yes, was a transfer from Washington, but really hadn't done anything. So you could see some of those lineups change a little bit early in the season to try and give some players some shine to see who steps up when the lights are bright. So, a combination of two things. I just think it's so fun opening week because no coach knows their lineup. If you talk to Caitlin or Patty Gasso or anyone, they're like, yeah, so-and-so will be here, but I don't know. We've got 4 or 5 other spots here that are open. We'll see what the lineup looks like and kind of go from there. And that's the beauty of the start of the season. And it's a long season. You go from February to May, and we'll see what they look like, late May, hopefully.
Yeah, so just to give everyone a snapshot of the schedule, we're recording this on Monday. I think I'll probably post the pod on Wednesday, as Arizona opens the season on Thursday, February 5th, with a doubleheader against Southern Utah, 2:30 and 4:30 p.m. Then Oklahoma comes into town for games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and 11 a.m. And as Kenzie mentioned, all those games will be streamed on ESPN Plus. And Oklahoma isn't the only really good team that Arizona faces during the non-con. They're also in this tournament at Stanford, where they will play the host Cardinal. They'll play Texas twice while they're out there at Stanford. And they also, just for fun, decided to throw in a series at LSU in the midst of the Big 12 season. There are 11 teams, so you're always going to have one team that has to play out of conference or have a bye week. So they're really going all in. I would imagine their strength of schedule is going to be very high at the end of the season, and which it kind of always was in the Pac-12, just from being in the Pac-12.
Exactly.
You have to compensate for that a little bit, right?
Exactly. And it's a little bit tough to balance, I think, as a coach, because the Big 12 has such heavy hitters. But then there's also some teams where maybe if you lose a game here and there, which could happen, right? It's softball and baseball, you're playing teams 3 times. Like, it's not like basketball where you're just playing one time. You're sitting there playing the same opponent 3 times in a row. So losses do sneak up on you. But, the bottom half of the Big 12 last season was, a little bit weak. And so if you do lose one of those games, how do you kind of offset that and plan, just in case as a safety net? Well, you load up that non-con, and sure did Arizona. My goodness. I mean, going to LSU, that's a really tough place to play. It's a great place to pitch, not a great place to hit. So we'll kind of see how that plays. And then I like that they're going to Stanford. I think that'll be fun. It keeps that rivalry alive a little bit. Good relationships with the coaching staff. Of course, Lauren Lappin was an All-American at Stanford. And they have a lot of players, Arizona does, on their roster from the Bay Area. So nice homecoming for them. And then just a bonus, you get to play the defending national champs twice. So the resume for Arizona, like, the opportunity is there for sure. If you can steal a couple of wins, man, you're going to be setting yourself up very well in May when that selection committee looks at the resume and sees who you played. Not only are you playing Nigeria Kennedy 3 times in conference, but then you're also playing Oklahoma, Texas, LSU, not just once, but multiple times. It's quite the juggernaut.
You have firsthand experience pitching at LSU?
Well, we practiced there.
Okay.
So my senior year, I was injured, and we had
Yep.
played at Louisiana Lafayette, and so my role was just kind of hanging out in the bullpen, and so we practiced there for 3 days, and we were all just watching each other. I mean, I wasn't pitching actively, but I was watching my teammates and talking to them, and we were like, "Why is the ball moving so much? This is ridiculous. You just have movement that you don't have in Arizona." And I have experience when I was young. I would the All-Star games were always in Florida. And so I'd go pitch in Florida a lot, in Orlando. And it's kind of the same thing where all of a sudden I'm used to just kind of spotting my stuff, spinning it as hard as I can. But you only get so much movement when you're in Tucson. And all of a sudden I'm spinning my drop, my rise ball. I'm going, looking at my coach going, that move more? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is good. I need to start a little bit lower then. So there's little things like that in the sport in terms of humidity. It's a huge game changer for pitchers. And it is notoriously known for a ballpark that does not give up home runs. So if you can hit a home run at LSU, you're really doing something because the ball just dies.
Interesting. I had no idea that humidity played such a huge role in the.
So you'll throw harder. Pitchers will throw harder in places like Tucson, or like anytime we play in Salt Lake City, or when we play in the summer in Colorado. You throwing 70 is easy. Maybe you just kind of lose a little bit of that movement, and then you go to the humidity, maybe you don't throw as hard, but that ball is spinning and you get more movement.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is a series deep into the schedule. That is going to be April 10th through the 12th down in Baton Rouge. Always fun when Arizona faces an SEC team in any sport. So we look forward to that very much. We, of course, look forward to Kenzie's coverage of Arizona and college softball at large. We thank her so much for joining us today. Let me see if I can get the right sound effect here. There we go.
Cheers for softball.
Softball season is upon us. The action gets going this week, and then away we go. And Kenzie's fun season begins. Appreciate having her here on the Wildcast podcast. You can find us on Apple. We're on Spotify. There's a video version of this that will be up on our website, tucson.com, where you can see Kenzie in her kind of her little bat cave there at McHale. Thanks again, Kenzie, so much for joining us. Really, truly appreciate it. Love talking softball with you. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me. See you at Rita.